On Friday, June 13th, Israel carried out a series of strikes against Iranian targets. The operation, called Operation Rising Lion, was the most extensive direct attack on Iran in the Islamic Republic's history. Key Iranian military leaders, including Major General Mohammad Bagheri and IRGC Commander Hossein Salami, were killed. Critical infrastructure, including the Natanz nuclear facility, was also hit. After waves of attacks, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu claimed Iran was close to building nuclear weapons and declared,
"This operation will continue for as many days as it takes to remove this threat."
Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, accused Israel of starting a war and promised harsh retaliation. In a televised speech, he warned Israel would face serious consequences, saying, "Life will be dark for them," and asserted that the Zionist government will not escape the repercussions of its actions. Iran responded by launching missiles and drones at several Israeli targets, including Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. In the attacks, Iranian missiles damaged the Haifa oil refinery, Weizmann Institute, and the headquarters of the Israeli spy agency, Mossad. The Israeli-Iranian conflict has reached a new level of intensity, with Israel actively leveraging military, diplomatic, and covert tools in an effort to draw the United States into a direct confrontation with Iran. After Iran's 1979 revolution, Iran, under Ayatollah Khomeini, broke decisively with the West and with Israel. Tehran branded the Jewish state an enemy of Islam. The 1982 Israeli invasion of Lebanon only hardened these lines. After the Israeli invasion of Lebanon, which targeted Palestinian and later Hezbollah forces, it only intensified Iran's support for militant groups, creating further animosity on both sides. With a population of under 10 million, Israel sees Iran's demographic scale over 90 million people and its ideological, anti-Zionist foundation as an existential threat. Earlier in the year, OPEC+ countries agreed to oil production cuts, creating over 5 million barrels per day of spare capacity. Further attacks could trigger retaliatory actions from Iran, including a potential closure of the Strait of Hormuz. The strait is one of the world's most vital oil transit routes, with roughly 20 million barrels per day of crude oil and petroleum products, about 20% of global oil consumption, passing through it. This includes exports from major Gulf producers such as Saudi Arabia, Iran, the UAE, Kuwait, and Iraq. Its disruption to this choke point could have significant consequences for global energy markets. While the Iranian parliament has discussed and seriously reviewed the possibility of closing the Strait of Hormuz, it's likely being reserved for a worst-case scenario should Israel commit to widespread attacks on Iranian ports and oil facilities. With oil not being able to leave the Persian Gulf, this would negatively impact Iran's own economy and the whole world. While the U.S. produces large volumes of oil domestically, much of that is light, sweet crude, which American refineries aren't optimized to process at scale. As a result, the U.S. continues to import heavier grades of crude from abroad, much of it transiting through Hormuz-bound shipping lanes. Disruptions in the strait would ripple through U.S. domestic supply chains and raise energy prices significantly. Markets reacted sharply to the initial strikes. By Monday, however, global markets had stabilized, as investors anticipated the conflict would remain regional, with no direct U.S. involvement. Amid rising tensions, President Trump has issued conflicting messages. He initially stated, "We're not involved, but it's possible," before warning Iran,
"We'll come down so hard if they do anything to our people."
Trump acknowledged prior knowledge of the Israeli operation and praised the strikes as excellent. He warned Tehran that there's more to come and urged Iranian leaders to accept a nuclear deal before there is nothing left. While he said he had advised Israel to avoid military action in order to preserve diplomatic momentum, he added that they just couldn't get it done, and that certain Iranian hardliners are all dead now. He concluded, Israel has a lot of U.S. equipment Although initially U.S. officials denied involvement, analysts believe U.S. satellite intelligence likely helped Israel pick its targets. The attack also killed several Iranian officials who were part of previous U.S.-Iran nuclear negotiations, making future talks unlikely in the near term. Trump claimed Iran was very close to having a nuclear weapon and said the U.S. would never allow it. Yet just months earlier, in March, U.S. Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard testified, "The intelligence community continues to assess that Iran is not building a nuclear weapon, and Supreme Leader Khamenei has not authorized the nuclear weapons program he suspended in 2003. In a visible show of force, the United States is deploying multiple naval fleets to the Middle East, with the Pentagon repositioning key air assets, including F-22 and F-35 planes, into the region. Iran is one of the most naturally fortified countries in the world. By average elevation, it is the most mountainous nation on Earth, a fact that rarely makes headlines, but shapes nearly every aspect of its defense strategy. The Zagros Range in the west and the Alborz Mountains in the north have, for centuries, served as formidable natural barriers. These mountains hide military sites and make attacks more difficult. Key facilities like Natanz are hidden in remote valleys, underground and heavily fortified. Much of Iran's defensive planning is embedded in this terrain. Facilities like the Natanz Enrichment Complex are deliberately placed in remote valleys underground, difficult to access and even harder to neutralize. Iran's military is not designed to project power like that of the United States or Israel. It is designed to survive, to absorb early strikes, retaliate asymmetrically, and stretch any confrontation into a drawn-out, high-cost campaign. In the event of full-scale escalation, Iran is unlikely to collapse quickly. It is far more likely to dig in, adapt, and wait, relying on terrain, time, and attrition to shift the balance in its favor. As a result, the preferred strategy for both Israel and the United States is not a ground invasion, but targeted decapitation, the removal of senior leadership figures in an effort to trigger regime change. The approach echoes what took place in Libya in 2011, when US-led coalition forces killed Muammar Gaddafi, plunging the country into chaos and prolonged civil war. From Libya to Iraq to Afghanistan, such strategies have toppled regimes but rarely replaced them. More often, they leave chaos, violence, and a power vacuum behind. In the days following the Israeli strikes, 21 states, including Saudi Arabia, Egypt, the UAE, Qatar, Oman, Jordan, and Turkey, issued a joint condemnation, calling the attacks a violation of international law and a dangerous breach of Iranian sovereignty. The language was diplomatic but firm, a call for restraint, for respect of borders, for a return to negotiation. Oman, often a quiet mediator in regional disputes, issued one of the starkest warnings, citing the risk of widespread destabilization. Even states that have normalized ties with Israel in recent years found themselves publicly distancing from the escalation. Wary of domestic backlash and broader instability, in Lebanon, Hezbollah condemned the attacks but stopped short of promising immediate retaliation, stating it would not act unilaterally. The Lebanese government urged the group to avoid dragging the country into another war. Across the region, the message is clear. While governments may hedge, populations are alarmed. Iran isn't collapsing. Israel isn't backing down. And the United States is once again drifting toward a conflict it insists it doesn't want to join. In Tehran, the Supreme Leader has promised that retaliation will be decisive and that the world will remember this day for centuries. President Donald Trump has approved military strike plans targeting Iran, specifically its nuclear facilities, including the heavily fortified Fordo site. Trump has made public comments suggesting imminent action, stating, "The next week is going to be very big," and he later added, "I may do it, I may not do it." While strike plans have reportedly been approved, no final order has been issued. 2 U.S. carrier strike groups are currently in the region, with a third scheduled to deploy to the Mediterranean next week. This would place 3 U.S. carrier groups within reach. There is no formal declaration, no fixed endpoint, just a region moving closer to war. One decision at a time, with no guarantee that anyone is still in control of where it leads.